Hi, my name is Natasha Gyamerah, and in case you missed,
I must have a manifesto, otherwise if I do everything now, if I could, what would I do when I come into office?
Vice President Dr. Bawumia's Meet the Press moment has been the talk of the town, and for good reason. The NPP pulled a slick move, dropping this event right on the heels of the NDC's manifesto launch. Was it a masterstroke or a misfire? Did Bawumia bring the same fire he had when he was in opposition? Well, that's for you to decide. Although it was Dr. Bawumia's show, his mind was fixed on his biggest rival, John Dramani Mahama.
If there are people who are smooth talkers, who can speak rat-ta-ta-ta-ta like machine gun, the time when they become stammerers and they start stammering, you know they are lying.
And who can blame him? The journalist came with jabs straight from Mahama's playbook.
Your Excellency, former President Mahama says you were supposed to be an economic messiah, but you seem to have failed in the management of the economy. Do you have any response?
He should know his own record. I mean, we don't all have short memories. We really don't all have short memories. I'll ask the former president, if he hasn't read, to go and read the receiver's report, or to go and read the Bank of Ghana report, and acquaint himself before making any further comments on matters he clearly does not understand. Because he has been president before, and he should know these things. He should know these things.
And just when things were heating up, Miracles Abuaje threw a curveball at GHOne over a quote.
I have also been called out the same way I called TV3, and let me add GHOne as well. Let's give fair reportage. It's fine. Report as you want to report, but don't cut my statement when you know it's not complete. It's unfair. So please, that's what we are saying. We are not telling you what to report. We are only saying that if I make a full comment and you bring one part of it and report on it, you are deliberately setting me up for something to satisfy your own agenda. Please, let's be fair. GHOne has also done the same. I think it's fair that we correct it.
And what was the big deal about this quote?
I must have a manifesto, otherwise if I do everything now, if I could, what would I do when I come into office? I mean, how can you do everything now? Even President Mahama, former president, who was president, I'm only vice president, but he was president. Why didn't he do everything then?
Then the million-dollar question. How does Dr. Bawumia feel about being branded a liar by the opposition?
I said to someone, well, at least I'm not called a murderer, as my boss was called, or I'm not called a drug dealer, or even I'm not called government official one.
Did he nail his response? Well, you be the judge. Let's just say his explanation might have missed the mark. The night zinger came from Ibrahim Al-Hassan of EIB's political desk. Dr. Bawumia took a good chunk of time breaking it down. But who's counting?
Of course, forgive me for taking you back. In 2016, when we were on the campaign trail, you had this declaration, and it's a very famous one. Parents are suffering, students are suffering, traders are suffering, pensioners are suffering, drivers are suffering, contractors are suffering, civil servants are suffering, farmers are suffering, fishermen are suffering, men are suffering, women are suffering, children are suffering, and Ghanaians as a whole are suffering. May I know the status of suffering of these individuals today?
I remember very well, my statements. Teachers are suffering, and doctors are suffering, and journalists are suffering, and everybody is suffering. In 2016, which was the case actually, in that regard. But I think that we've moved on significantly since 2016, and we can point to a few things that we have, because at the end of the day, you reduce suffering broadly by creating jobs so that you give people something to do, or you bring in some social interventions to ameliorate the problems, the hardships that are there. So you need to look at what we have done. We've created at least 2.1 million jobs. You know, we've kept all public sector workers employed. We didn't lay off anyone during the COVID. And we've kept the lights on. We suffered so much from doomsday. Everybody was suffering from doomsday. I think that, yes, the suffering is there, but we've done a lot of social interventions to ameliorate that suffering. It's not gone, but at least we can point to things that have gone in to reduce the suffering of our people. I mean,
honestly, you don't need a thesis to explain how you've improved people's lives. They should be able to feel it without the footnotes. Another question came in hot, and the response?
You will remember this quote: if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. How do I explain this to my mother, a cocoa seller, that in 2014, the fundamentals were weak? In 2024, where a dollar is now 15 cedis, the fundamentals are not weak, but the prices of goods and services are high today.
It's an economic truism that once the fundamentals weaken, you will see the impact on the exchange rate fundamentally. And when we talk about many of these fundamentals, you're talking about the GDP growth rate, you're talking about the fiscal balance, you're talking about the exchange, the reserves, level of the reserves that you have, inflation, and so on. When we came into office, during the first term before we hit COVID, between 2017 and 2019, you saw the fundamentals pretty much strengthening by all accounts. And the exchange rate depreciated in those 3 years by less than 5%. That was the lowest depreciation in the currency for 28 years. I think we went up, even after COVID, we didn't get that high a depreciation. But the biggest shock for the economy came in 2022. All hell was breaking loose in 2022. Inflation, 54% as at November 2022. Exchange rate had depreciated at 54%. And of course, you could look at the fundamentals were in trouble at that time. You saw the fiscal deficit going up, you saw inflation going up, growth declining. And so for me, it wasn't surprising, even though it was shocking, the extent to which the exchange rate went. So the point that we are making is that once the fundamentals weaken, you will get it shown in the exchange rate.
Well, you know why John Dramani Mahama has his eyes set on Dr. Bawumia.
Somebody who can speak like AK-47. Suddenly media encounter, I think,
Now in the end, it's clear that this election season will be a battle of issues. At least, that's the hope. Love him or hate him, it's clear that Dr. Bawumia has kept the spotlight this election season. And let's face it, that's why you're still watching.